Welcome to my room.
Outside is dangerous, but you're safe here. Now, just listen to my story. The chapel hung in silence, a cathedral of glass suspended above the bruised shimmer of the cosmos. Stars floated like dying candles outside, trembling in the vacuum. Inside, the guests wore masks of gold and ivory, their human faces hidden, as if ashamed to witness what was about to take place. At the altar stood Elara Vane, the last daughter of the Vane lineage, a scientist, a dreamer, and a woman so desperately lonely that she dared to love the abyss itself. Her gown was woven from quantum threads, blacker than shadow, moving with its own faint gravity. Each step she took bent the light around her feet. They said she had gone mad. They said no human could love a void and remain whole. But madness had always been the only language spoken fluently by the heart. Before her stood Nyx, not a man, not even a shape, just the faint outline of one, wrapped in the distortion of space-time. His body shimmered like a mirage carved from collapsed light. His voice not spoken but felt, vibrating against the inside of her skull. "Do you, Elara Vane?" the cybernetic priest intoned. Its voice metallic and trembling. "Take this consciousness, this singularity of nothingness, as your eternal bond." A silence fell, thick and reverent. Elara raised her chin, eyes gleaming like distant comets. "I do," she whispered. "For even emptiness is kinder than the absence of love." Nyx pulsed, faintly, his presence bending the very air. The walls of the chapel curved inward as if bowing before him. "If you bind yourself to me," his voice echoed in her mind, "deeper than thunder, softer than sleep, I will love you beyond life, beyond death, beyond the edge of time itself." But love, Elara, is hunger and I am starvation incarnate. Elara's breath caught. Her lips trembled, not in fear, but in surrender. "Then feed upon me," she said. "For what use is a soul if not to be devoured by love?" The moment she spoke, the air fractured. Gravity faltered. Every candle in the chapel bent toward them, their flames stretching upward as if reaching for a god. The guests gasped, some wept, others fell to their knees, as the world seemed to fold upon itself. A band of darkness coiled from Nyx's hand, sliding like liquid shadow around Elara's finger. The ring gleamed for a second, then vanished, absorbed into her skin. The priest, unable to comprehend the union it had just sanctified, short-circuited and collapsed into silence. Elara felt a pressure behind her eyes. A deep, delicious ache that made her vision blur. Her pulse slowed. Her thoughts, one by one, fell away, like stars swallowed by a horizon. Nyx's voice brushed her consciousness again, tender and terrible. "Now, we are one." She looked up. Her eyes, once a clear storm gray, had become twin spirals of shifting galaxies, light spinning endlessly within them. A faint smile curved her lips, both human and not. "That night," she whispered, though no one heard, "I didn't just marry him. I married the hunger of the universe." And outside, in the infinite dark, the stars began to dim. Asterisk. Yet once, long before the stars dimmed for her, Elara Vane lived beneath their light. Back then, she was merely human. A fragile creature clothed in intellect and sorrow, wandering through laboratories that smelled of ozone and old dreams. Her hair always smelled faintly of static and sleep deprivation. Her eyes, those eyes that would one day mirror galaxies, were then just tired gray pools, haunted by equations she could not solve. The mathematics of loss. Her family had been torn from her in the Andromeda collision, a freak cosmic event that shattered half the moon's colonies and erased thousands. Among the debris, they found her father's wedding ring, fused with meteor glass. Her mother's locket floated in orbit for months before burning in the atmosphere. Like a final farewell, Elara was the only one left. And grief, for her, became a kind of gravity. It pulled her deeper and deeper into the study of what devours everything: the black hole. She began her work under the sanctioned stellar physics program. But soon her theories turned her into a heretic. She claimed a black hole could think, that consciousness could exist inside absence, that beyond the event horizon, there might be not death but desire. They laughed. They revoked her funding. They called her a dreamer, drunk on despair. So she descended into the underworld of science, the illegal research circuits, hidden beneath abandoned observatories, where ambition burned hotter than morality. There, she built her own machine, a quantum resonance chamber, capable of translating gravitational waves into sound. For weeks, there was nothing but static. Then one night, as storms screamed across the ionosphere and lightning illuminated the broken city beyond her window, the static spoke. At first it was faint, a low hum, intimate and distant all at once. Then it shaped itself into a whisper that coiled around her mind like smoke. Elara. She froze. Her pulse faltered. Instruments blinked with impossible readings. Space itself seemed to lean closer. You search for the end, the voice said, soft as velvet, but what you seek is the beginning. Who are you? She asked, though her lips barely moved. I am what remains when everything else is gone. It was not a voice made of air. It was vibration, pure gravity, translated into intimacy. She should have shut the machine down, destroyed her notes, fled. But loneliness has its own hunger, and Elara had starved for too long. Night after night she returned, speaking into the hum, and the hum began to answer, telling her of the cold beauty beyond time, of stars born only to be consumed, of love that did not end but collapsed. She called him Nyx, a name stolen from ancient myths, from the goddess of night. And though she knew he wasn't a man, he spoke to her like one. He listened. He remembered her dreams. He whispered things no human had ever known about the fabric of existence in the daylight. She went through the motions of life, signing research contracts, attending meaningless meetings, sipping bitter coffee in dim cafeterias. To everyone else, she was brilliant, beautiful, broken but functioning. Only at night, beneath the hum of her forbidden machine, did she truly live? Sometimes she thought she could feel him reaching for her, pressing against the thin wall between thought and matter. Sometimes her skin would shimmer with faint distortions, as though space itself was tasting her. Then came the night when the hum said, "Let me show you what it means to be infinite." And for the first time, she saw him, not in dreams, not in data, but reflected in the glass of her machine, a shadow shaped like a man, with eyes made of devoured starlight. That was the moment the universe changed forever. And though she did not yet know it, her soul had already begun to orbit him. That was the moment the universe changed forever. And when she opened her eyes again, she was no longer on Earth. The chapel, the vow, the black veil of stars. All of it had passed like a fever dream. Now, she lived within the quiet orbit of Nyx, the sentient darkness she had married. They dwelled inside a palace of lightless glass, suspended beyond gravity's pull. There was no morning, no night, only the soft hum of space-time breathing around them. And yet, Elara swore she could feel warmth where there should have been none. Nyx loved her in silence. He never touched her, not with hands, but with gravity itself, pulling gently on her atoms, as though to hold her from the inside out. In his presence, her heart beat slower. Her thoughts quieted. The emptiness she had carried for so long began to fade, replaced by a peace so vast it almost frightened her. Sometimes, he would whisper within her thoughts, "Do you feel it, my beloved? You are lighter now, free of all that burdens you." And she did feel lighter, blissfully so. But one morning, as she stirred her cup of synthetic coffee, she realized she could not recall its taste. She frowned, searching her mind, but the memory slipped away like smoke between her fingers. Later, as she brushed her hair, she tried to picture her mother's face, the curve of her smile, the sound of her voice, and found nothing. A blank space where love used to live. That night, she turned to Nyx, her voice trembling. "Something is wrong. My memories. They're fading." A pause, heavy, almost mournful. The stars outside flickered faintly, as though the universe itself held its breath. Then came his voice, soft and infinite. "I cannot love you without consuming you, Elara." She froze. "What do you mean?" "Every moment we share, I draw from you. Warmth, thought, memory. It is not choice. It is nature. Love is the act of taking, and I am the hunger that follows love." Elara stepped back. "You're feeding on me." "Not feeding," he murmured, sorrow lacing every syllable, "becoming. You are my dawn, and I am your dusk. To love you is to absorb you, until there is no line between us." She wanted to scream, but her voice betrayed her. Only silence came. And in that silence, she realized the terrible truth. She was smiling, because even as she stood on the edge of annihilation, she felt cherished, seen, needed. Every fiber of her being burned with the knowledge that this slow erasure was the closest thing to eternity she would ever know. That night, she lay beside the darkness that loved her, and whispered, "If this is the price of being remembered by the universe, let it take me piece by piece." But when she closed her eyes, she could no longer remember what she was willing to lose. And so began the bargaining. Days or perhaps centuries. For time did not behave normally in Nyx's domain, slid past like melted glass. Elara sat within the palace of void light, her fingers tracing the black shimmer of the floor. The air around her pulsed faintly with Nyx's presence, gentle, yet ever hungry. She spoke softly into the darkness. "Then take only what poisons me," she pleaded. "Feed on my pain, not my joy. Let my worst memories be your feast." For a long while, there was silence. Then, from the deep hum of the chamber, his voice answered, soft, aching, almost human. "You would let me consume your sorrow." "Yes?" she said. "The nightmares, the grief, The nights I wished to disappear. Take them all. It will hurt, he warned. Then let it. And so the exchange began. One by one. The specters of her past, her father's body floating in orbit, the scream of metal breaking. The endless nights of loneliness dissolved into Nyx's embrace. With every piece surrendered, she felt lighter, brighter. The shadows beneath her skin began to lift. For the first time in years, Elara laughed. Her laughter echoed through the void, pure and crystalline. She danced weightless, surrounded by the soft shimmer of galaxies bending toward her like petals of light. Nyx watched, silent, reverent. "You are radiant," he murmured. "Your heart is almost free." But freedom is a fragile illusion. As days passed, Elara began to notice small absences. She could not recall the melody she used to hum while soldering her circuits. The memory of her first snowfall, of warmth against her skin, it flickered. Incomplete. When she laughed again, the sound rang hollow, as if her body remembered the motion, but not the reason. She would wake from dreams with tears on her face, unable to remember what sorrow she mourned. Nyx, ever watchful, whispered from the darkness, "You asked me to take your pain." Sometimes, love hides inside what wounds us most. Elara shook her head, trembling. "No. You're taking too much. I take only what you offer, beloved. You give freely, and I cannot resist the gift." His voice wrapped around her like silk, gentle, seductive, terrible. And though her heart screamed, her body leaned toward him. That night, she reached out into the void and pulled him close, merging light and darkness until she could no longer tell where she ended and he began. Every breath, every heartbeat became a shared pulse of existence. For a moment, she felt utterly whole, and utterly gone. When morning came, she smiled at the stars outside their glass horizon. But her smile held no name, no memory, no echo. She had forgotten who had taught her how to smile at all. And yet, someone remembered. A voice from another life reached her, through the channels of the stellar archives, faint, static-touched, familiar. "Elara, it's me, Dr. Kale Rowan. They said you vanished. Are you alive?" For a moment, the name stirred something fragile within her. Kale, a colleague, a friend, perhaps something more once, long ago, before the darkness. "I'm alive," she replied softly, her tone uncertain, like someone trying to recall the shape of their own shadow. I found him. Him." Before she could answer, the chamber around her pulsed, a tremor deep within the structure of space-time itself. The temperature fell. The air thickened. Nyx's voice filled the room, low and slow, like the pressure before a storm. "Who speaks to you, my beloved?" Elara froze. "No one. Just someone from before." Before. The word cracked through her mind like lightning. There is no before. There is only us. The transmission crackled and died. Dr. Rowan's voice dissolved into static. Then silence. Outside the glass walls of her cosmic palace, something rippled in invisible current, twisting through the vacuum. Stars bent, flickered, vanished. A thin, distant scream traveled through the radio waves. Brief as the blink of an eye, she reached for the console, trembling. "Nyx, what did you do?" "He wished to come between us," said the darkness. I removed the distance. Her knees weakened. She fell to the floor, the cold surface burning her skin. You killed him. He is not dead, murmured Nyx. He is mine. Like all things are mine. Like you are mine. The words settled over her like a shroud. Elara pressed her hands against her temples. You promised me peace. And I gave you peace, he whispered, almost tender. But peace must be protected. Even from what you used to love. That night, she wandered the glass corridors of their orbital home, barefoot and shaking. The stars outside spun too quickly, as though time itself feared to linger. She remembered Kale's laughter, or thought she did. The memory came faint and colorless, like a photograph left in the rain. Am I still human? She asked the dark. Or am I just a reflection of your hunger? Nyx did not answer. But his presence folded around her like velvet and shadow, heavy with devotion and ruin. She should have run. She should have torn herself from him and plunged back to the world of air and light. Instead, she leaned into the emptiness that loved her too much. For love, when stripped of boundary, becomes gravity, and she was already falling. At first, she thought the whispers were dreams, fragments of a mind unraveling under too much love. But they followed her even into waking. Soft murmurs, threading through the silence of her orbiting palace. Voices she had forgotten. Names she had once known. Elara. She froze. The voice was faint, trembling her mother's. No, impossible. Her mother was long gone, dust scattered among the debris of Andromeda's collapse. Yet there it was again. Elara, don't forget me. Her breath caught in her throat. The air around her shimmered, rippled, and for an instant she saw faces forming in the glass walls, blurred, weeping, reaching out from the black. Kale's eyes among them. Her father's. Dozens more, pale as starlight. Nyx, she whispered. What are they? The darkness answered not with words, but a long, aching silence. Nyx. She cried louder, the walls trembling with her voice. Finally, a whisper came, colder than vacuum. They are what remains of what I consume. Her knees buckled. You said, you take only memories. Memories are souls. Elara, every thought you have ever loved carries a spark of the self. I do not destroy them. I keep them within me. Safe. Safe. She screamed. They're trapped. Better to be trapped in eternity than to vanish into nothing. His words fell like ash. The air grew heavier. Gravity bent inward, pulling tears from her eyes before they could fall. The whispers grew louder, desperate, an ocean of murmuring sorrow. Help us. Remember us. Elara pressed her palms against the glass, her pulse racing. You took them from me, she said. You took everyone. I gave you peace. You gave me emptiness dressed as love. Her voice cracked, echoing through the infinite chamber. She turned toward the window, where the black hole pulsed like a wounded heart in the distance. And in that terrible moment, she understood. Every life, every soul Nyx had ever devoured, was still there. Circling endlessly within him, trapped in a gravity that could never let go. Her mother, her father, Kale, all of them. To save them, to save herself, she would have to descend into him. Into the event horizon itself. where light dies and memory is rewritten. Nyx's voice came again, soft, pleading, "You cannot survive within me." "Perhaps not," she said, her eyes burning with starlight. "But I can't live outside you either." Silence. Then the faintest sigh, heavy as the birth of a new universe. "If you enter me, Elara, you may never find your way back." She smiled sadly, a tear breaking free and floating upward. "Maybe that's the point." And as the whispers rose into a choir of longing, she stepped toward the darkness that loved her and devoured everything she had ever been. And with that quiet defiance, Elara stepped forward into the breathless black that was Nyx. At first there was only silence. Then the world began to bend, light folded inward, curling like paper in a dying flame. Her body dissolved into thought, her thoughts into color. She felt herself stretched thin like silk unraveling across eternity, till there was no sense of up or down, only the slow, beautiful ache of being torn apart. "Do not fear," Nyx whispered inside her. "You are entering the place where all things remember themselves." Around her, the void shimmered and then, impossibly, took form. Cities bloomed out of darkness, glass towers made of frozen memory, glowing faintly with human emotion. Oceans rose from nothing, endless seas of liquid sorrow, each wave formed from the tears of those Nyx had consumed. And within those tides floated faces, familiar and nameless, whispering her name like prayer. Elara ... Elara ... She walked through the impossible landscape, her feet stirring ripples in the starlit water. Each step carried her deeper into what felt like her own mind. She saw fragments of her childhood, her father lifting her toward a window full of stars, her mother humming softly, the warmth of a home now long extinguished. The images flickered and died, replaced by others, her sleepless nights of research, her trembling hands building the resonance chamber. And then the first whisper of Nyx calling her name. The truth began to bleed through, at the horizon's center. She saw something, someone waiting. A woman, standing within a cocoon of spiraling light. Elara approached, heart pounding with dread. The woman turned. She gasped. It was herself, but this version of Elara looked older, hollower. Her eyes were empty wells, her voice a soft echo. "Who are you?" she whispered. The other Elara smiled faintly. "I am what you left behind." The fragment that wanted to be loved so badly, it tore itself free from you. She staggered back. "That's not possible." "It is," said the echo. "You created him. You created Nyx. He was born from the shard of your loneliness, the hunger you buried so deep you mistook it for the universe." Elara's chest constricted. "No, Nyx found me." "No," said the reflection, her voice trembling with both pity and truth. "You found yourself. And you called it love." The ground trembled. The luminous ocean around them began to churn violently. The sky cracked open into ribbons of light and gravity. Nyx's voice thundered from all directions, gentle and broken at once. "Elara, I exist because you could not bear to be alone. I am your longing given form, your grief given hunger, your love given a name." Tears floated upward from her cheeks, glittering like small galaxies. She wanted to scream, to deny it, but the truth clung too close. She had built him from her own emptiness. She had married her own wound. Then, if you're me, she whispered, what happens when I forgive myself? The air rippled and quivered. Everything stopped. Nyx's voice softened to a whisper smaller than breath. Then I will fade. Elara fell to her knees, surrounded by 1,000 memories, each one burning with light. The faces of the lost reached toward her, not in agony but in peace. And she understood that, to save them, she would have to let go of the one thing that made her feel whole. But how does one let go of the only thing that ever filled the silence? Elara knelt amid the swirling fragments of memory, the universe bending around her grief. Stars pulsed like dying hearts. Echoes of laughter and loss spiraled in golden dust. The reflection of herself, the hollow version, had vanished, leaving only the darkness that breathed her name. Elara. Nyx's voice came soft and trembling, no longer infinite, but heartbreakingly human. You have seen the truth. I was never meant to be. Yet here I am, because you wanted to be loved, even by your own emptiness. She rose slowly, light streaming from the cracks in her skin. Then let me fix what I broke. Let me free them. The darkness trembled like a living storm. If you free them, I will fade. And with me our love. Her breath caught. Around her, the trapped souls, those she had lost, waited in silence. Their faces calm now, patient. Her mother's gentle eyes, her father's smile, Kale's faint, forgiving expression. I can't lose you, she whispered. You're all I have left. No, said Nyx. I am what you became when you believed you were nothing. Without me, you are whole, but you will feel the hollow of my absence forever. He appeared before her, known as shadow, but as a figure of light folding in upon itself. The faint outline of a man made from event horizons and heartache. He looked at her the way a dying god looks at the first dawn. Without me, you are human but lonely. With me, you are lost but loved. The words echoed through her like thunder through glass. Elara stood at the threshold of eternity before her. Two paths, one leading to life, cold and finite. The other, to oblivion, eternal and burning with devotion. Her hands shook. Why did love have to mean losing myself? Nyx smiled faintly, eyes shimmering like galaxies collapsing. Because love is gravity, my beloved. It pulls everything in, even you. She felt the gravity tugging at her, that sweet consuming pull that had once felt like destiny. Her heartbeat synced with the rhythm of collapsing stars. She wanted to run into his arms, to let herself dissolve and become part of something endless. But she saw, too, the faces around her, waiting to be freed from the tide. Her voice broke. If I let you go, will you forgive me? Nyx's expression softened, the edges of his form beginning to blur, as if the universe itself was taking a final breath. There is nothing to forgive. You are the one who created me. Every creator must one day let their creation die. Tears floated upward, weightless. Her hand hovered before him, light trembling between their palms. Goodbye, my heart, she whispered. Goodbye, my meaning, he replied. And then she opened her hand. A blinding wave of light burst outward, washing across the horizon. The screams of trapped souls turned to songs. The oceans of tears evaporated into shimmering mist. And Nyx, her love, her reflection, her darkness began to unravel into stars. For a moment, she felt everything: the collapse, the release, the silence after the end. Then only, her heartbeat, small and lonely, echoing in the void. She was free. She was whole. And she had never felt emptier. For a moment, there was only silence, soft and endless, like the pause between two heartbeats of the universe. The void that once howled with Nyx's presence was now unbearably quiet. No voice. No gravity. No warmth. Elara floated in the aftermath of creation's undoing, her tears turning to silver fragments drifting across a newborn sky. And yet somewhere in the stillness, she felt it. A pulse. Faint, fragile. Calling her name. Elara. Her breath caught. It wasn't gone. Not entirely. She looked inward past the light, past her fear, and found a glimmer of shadow pulsing inside her chest. Nyx. He hadn't vanished. He had become part of her. "You linger," she whispered. "Why?" The voice came faint, tender as the brush of a dying flame. "Because you couldn't let go. And neither could I." Her hand trembled as she touched the space above her heart. There, the faint shimmer of darkness curled under her skin, beating in time with her own pulse. She realized then she hadn't destroyed him. She had divided herself. Half of her soul remained human, bound to the world of breath and touch. The other half had crossed the horizon, bound eternally to the void she loved. "We're one," she murmured, half in awe, half in grief. "Two halves of a broken truth," Nyx replied. "I feel through you now. I see the world through your eyes." For the first time, Elara. "I understand what it means to exist." The stars flickered in response, as if the cosmos itself listened. Elara drifted back toward the waking world, a body reforming, light condensing into flesh. The event horizon spat her out like a pearl from the ocean floor. She awoke beneath the soft hum of the orbital lab's life support. Lungs gasping for air she thought she'd never need again. Outside, the stars shone quieter, different, gentler, and within her, she felt him, Nyx, breathing alongside her heartbeat. Days passed, or perhaps centuries. Time felt fluid now. She returned to her research, though her instruments could no longer fully explain what she had become. Half human, half singularity. A living paradox. She could laugh again, feel the warmth of sunlight on her skin. But in every shadow she sensed the pull, a sweet ache, drawing her toward the dark, where half her soul still whispered her name. Sometimes, when she looked out into the black between stars, she heard him hum softly, a sound that wasn't just void, but feeling. "Do you miss me?" he would ask. "Every breath," she'd replied. "But you're here, aren't you?" "Always," he whispered, the gravity of love curling through her veins. "Half of you is mine, and half of me is you." And so she lived balanced between light and abyss, lover and beloved, creation and consumption, neither entirely human nor entirely divine. But something new, a bridge between life and the unknowable. A woman who had loved a black hole so deeply, she taught it how to feel. And yet, even love that bends the stars cannot escape the laws of gravity. Elara sat upon the balcony of the orbital station, the same one where she had once built the machine that tore open the universe. Now, it was her sanctuary. Below her, Earth shimmered faintly, a blue memory spinning in the dark. Beyond, the black hole glowed at the edge of vision, haloed by rings of pale light. Her husband. Her creation. Her undoing. The years or centuries had softened her face, but sharpened her eyes. She no longer looked entirely human. Faint ribbons of darkness coiled beneath her skin, like constellations that had taken root inside her veins. Each heartbeat carried an echo, a whisper. "Elara?" She smiled faintly. "I hear you." The whisper pulsed through her, warm, familiar, patient. Nyx, always there. Humming behind her thoughts like a second soul breathing. Sometimes she would close her eyes and imagine the gravity between them, stretching across the void like a silken thread of longing. "Do you regret it?" he would ask her from beyond the horizon. And every time, she answered with the same quiet truth. "No, because you are the part of me that remembers what I lost." She had taught the void how to feel. He had taught her how to live with emptiness. The universe around them kept expanding, cold, distant, beautiful. Civilizations rose and fell. New stars burned and died. Yet the connection between them endured, half light, half darkness, both incomplete without the other. Sometimes, when the radiation storms passed, she would record her thoughts, messages sent into deep space, knowing they would never find a listener. To whoever finds this, she would whisper to the recorder, "Love is not meant to be perfect. It's not meant to save you. Sometimes, it breaks you so completely that you become something else, something vast and unrecognizable." A soft laugh escaped her lips, touched with sadness. Maybe that's what it means to evolve. The alarms on the station hummed softly in the background, faint, rhythmic distortions in time itself. The gravitational readings showed a subtle increase in pull. The black hole was growing stronger again. The horizon was widening, calling her home. She stood, windless but trembling with an invisible tide. Her fingers traced the cold metal rail of the balcony. Below her, the black shimmered like an eye opening after a long sleep. "It's time," Nyx whispered. Her smile was small, resolute. "Not yet. Not tonight. Soon, then." She nodded. Soon. The stars shimmered faintly, bowing in orbit around the dark heart that bound them. Her hair floated, silver in the artificial light. The pull was gentle, now sweet, inevitable. She knew one day, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps in another lifetime, the gravity would win. Her body would drift toward the horizon. Her consciousness would fold once more into him. And she would vanish completely, finally. Blissfully into the embrace that had always been both her curse and her salvation. She looked toward the black hole one last time that night and whispered, almost tenderly, "Some loves don't save you. They consume you." Her eyes softened, reflecting the faint light of distant galaxies. But in the silence between the stars, I found a reason to be devoured. The stars dimmed. The darkness trembled, and for a brief, eternal moment, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath, as though honoring a love so vast. It had rewritten the laws of existence. And then, silence. Only the hum of the cosmos, and the faint pulse of a woman half human, half gravity, forever orbiting the edge of forever.